Welcome to Just Thinking. I'm back again doing what I've learned to do, and that's think. So I wanted to touch again on that can there be any intimacy without vulnerability? And I know that I touched a little bit on why men don't like to be vulnerable. I know women don't like to be vulnerable either, but I'm not a woman, so I don't know, why. There are reasons I never indulge in a conversation as to why. I've always, most women that I've known or encountered, they haven't had an issue with vulnerability. But men, we have an issue with vulnerability. And the crazy thing about it is when I posted that video about can there be intimacy without vulnerability, somebody posted a Twitter quote from Lil Durk. And he said, don't tell he or she like basically how you feel, or don't get too deep with them, or they'll use it against you. So I've known that to be the number one reason why us as men don't share, and the reason why we don't get deep. We can stay on the surface with someone for a lifetime. You can be in a relationship with someone for 20, 30 years, even your best partner, your cousin, your brother, your sister, your mother. You can be in a relationship or know these people for years and not have an intimate relationship with them because you don't want to take the risk of being vulnerable. Because that risk of vulnerability, it comes with a high risk of being hurt, because it can easily be turned against you. You open your heart up, you get to share things that are deep within that maybe you've never talked to anyone about, your insecurities, thoughts that you may have, past trauma, past experience, fears, whatever it may be. You tend to share those things to break that barrier or break down that wall between you and that individual. But like I said, that fear is that it'll be thrown back in your face later. And if we could be honest, as men, when we're in a relationship with a woman and that relationship begins to go bad, the first thing that that woman hurls out at you is something that you've shared deeply with her, or an insecurity that you have. And then when that happens, that's like, well, man, I ain't never telling nobody else that again, because you don't want to feel that sense of, betrayal, that loss of trust. It's like, I trusted this person, and it really shouldn't be like that when it comes to relationships. If I've shared something with you, or if you know something about me that's personal, something that is, an insecurity of mine, or something that other people just may not know, just based on knowing me off the surface, then, that's me being vulnerable. You shouldn't, my vulnerability should be held in a box within your heart. And so if those things are used against me, then there's no way that I'm going to want to be vulnerable to the next person, and then when your family members use your vulnerabilities against you, or your so-called friends, then it's like, man, like I gotta stay closed off. And honestly, that's not the way that we were created to be. Now, we just don't go around, because there has to be balance in everything that you do. Everything that you do, there's balance. So you don't go around just sharing, your heart and your thoughts and your insecurities and your fears and all of these things that are locked away in a vulnerability case or safe within your heart. You don't go around sharing those with just anybody. But when we feel like we have a connection with someone, when we feel like someone is going to be there to protect us, to protect our heart, someone that we feel that loves us, or that we feel like we have a close relationship with, then in order for us to continue to build on that relationship, or in order for us to even use those words of close relationship or intimate relationship, you have to be vulnerable. But like I said, as men, that's something that's hard for us to do, right? And when we're allowed to not be vulnerable, we're allowed to not be connected. And that's why we're able to move the way we move, messing around with multiple women and being able to, engage in different relationships and not have any feelings behind it is because we haven't locked in. And there is no locking in without being vulnerable. And so I really don't know what a solution would be, other than healing from past hurts, and past pain, and just going through the process of forgiving those who have harmed you. And then maybe God will restore, that factor within you, that holds you back from being vulnerable to the people that you need to be vulnerable with. Because you don't need to be vulnerable with everybody. Everybody doesn't need to know where you've been, what you've done, what you feel, what's in your heart, what's your deepest fears, what's your deepest desires, what your insecurities are, your deepest thoughts, the thoughts that people may deem to be weird. Like, everybody doesn't need to know those things, but there are people in your life that need to have that connection with you. Your significant other, your closest friend, whatever relationship you may have with a mentor or a parent, or a sibling, or your children. To me, your children need you to be vulnerable because believe it or not, you cannot even be in your child's life, their whole life. But because they are your child, they have characteristics of you. So they have some of the same feelings. They have some of the same struggles. They have some of the same insecurities, some of the same fears. The mannerisms are the same. There's a lot. The thought process is the same. Even if you weren't there to teach them or influence them in any way, that connection is there, right? And so that's why it's important for you to be vulnerable to them, to share with them your deepest thoughts, your fears, your insecurities, your feelings, because then they can get an understanding of why they are the way they are, right? So that's another level, right? But it's very important. So you want to share your vulnerabilities or be open and vulnerable to those people that you are required to be vulnerable with, or else those relationships will not flourish. They won't go anywhere, and you'll pass away. And that person can say that, yeah, you guys were this, that, and the other, but can they say that they really knew you, right? You know how, somebody does something crazy and then you be like, man, I never seen that coming from that person, right? Or some people use the phrase of you'll never really know a person. You'll never know a person. That is very true, because no matter how transparent you are and how vulnerable you are, a person there's still levels, right? There's still gates in there that you haven't completely opened to. And that's not for everybody. Some people are just open book, right? For me, I'm closed off. You know what I'm saying? I'm learning. This vulnerability thing is something that I'm learning. Things have been thrown in my face, before, that I've shared or that I've done. Insecurities and fears and things like that. They've been thrown in my face by loved ones and, significant others, and not necessarily, my wife, but I'm saying in the past, right? They've been thrown in my face. And so that caused me to be like, you know what? I'm cool, bruh. You know what I'm saying? I'm not finna, and then, when you're being raised too, it's like, boy, stop crying. You know what I'm saying? And even with your partners or whatever, get out your feelings, bruh. You know what I'm saying? Like, you way too emotional, or man, that's for girls, bro. Like, emotions is for girls. And it really is embedded in us though. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of our cultures really, they teach that. They raise us like that. Like, man, stop crying. What you crying for? You know what I'm saying? Like, man, get out of them, get out your feelings, bro. Or, like a lot of people, they say when they get high or they get drunk, they really want to spill their feelings and emotions. And, cats be like, man, you being too emotional, bro. That's soft, right? And that's exactly what is considered soft, right, bro? You being soft. It's people I've known for years and we've never had a real conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, things happen and people, they come to me because they know that I know the person and I've been friends with the person for years. And they're like, hey, man, what happened to so-and-so, man? Did he talk to you about it? Or nah, because it's just surface. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are taught and have been raised to like, bruh, nobody don't need to know what's in here, right? And in a sense, they're right. Everybody doesn't need to know. But there are meaningful relationships that you need to be vulnerable in, right? You need to be vulnerable in those relationships so that person will have a chance to know who you really are, right? And when they know who you really are, then they can understand why you are the way you are, right? That's from my previous video. And once they understand why you are the way you are, they can move accordingly. But again, that comes with building, right? Trust. You have to be able to trust that individual. And there's no way that you can 100% trust. But you have to have that feeling of, I can be open, right? That green light comes on, that door opens up. I can be open. I can share. I can be honest. My feelings are safe with this person. My vulnerability is safe with this person. And now I can open up. And sometimes it takes years to get there. But when you get there and you have a person that you can open up to, that you can be vulnerable to, oh man, the feeling is amazing. It's really amazing. But this is for, both sides, man. Those people who throw vulnerabilities back in people's faces, those insecurities back in people's faces, you got to stop, man. You got to stop, because you have insecurities too, right? You have insecurities too. You have fears too. You have feelings that everybody doesn't know about too. You have thoughts that people don't know about. You have a past that people don't know about. And nobody's throwing that in your face. People are letting you live. They're allowing you to be who you are freely. So don't take anybody else's insecurities or some things that people were vulnerable and spilled out to you and use that against them in the future when you're angry or when you're upset. That's immaturity. You know what I'm saying? That's that old on the playground, yo mama this, stuff about somebody's family, and then you start spilling it out, because, and you were friends with that person and that's how you knew what was going on and you spill it out. That's immaturity, right? So let's be mature on both sides. If I vow, to be married to my spouse, then that means that I vow to be open and honest, right? Enough to be able to share, but it has to be a comfortable place, right? So the other person has to make you feel comfortable enough to be able to spill that out. And then they have to be also ready to receive whatever it is that you're going to spill too. So vulnerability, man, there can be no intimate relationships. There can be no strong bond without vulnerability, so keep that in mind. And men, we're going to continue to work on it. I'm working on it. I've just reached this place to where I can even get in front of the camera and say that, this is a struggle of mine. I had to identify it first. And now that I've identified it and I've pinpointed the reason why, and like I said, the number one reason why is that it can be used against you, right? You can be hurt. And then the other reason is you can be rejected, right? And those are things that men do not want to feel, hurt and rejection, right? So I'm spilling it out on the table. It's something that I'm gonna continue to work on. I'll continue to make videos on as I learn. But Lil Durk, you was right, man. We don't want to share that information with him or her because they'll use it against you later on. But we got to change that, man, because we need the bond. We were built to be bonded, right? God didn't just create Adam. He created Eve, and then he created more people. So he wants us to be in relationship with one another and not just surface. We can't pray for each other. We can't carry each other's burdens. We can't be there for one another if we don't know what's going on. And again, I'm not saying to share with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's not ready, right? There's things that I'm not even going to say on here because everybody is not ready to receive. And that's just the way it is, right? But you know in your heart what relationships I'm talking about that need to be taken to another level. And we could keep it where we're talking about with the kids, right? With your kids, hands down, they don't need to be lied to. They need to know the truth. You need to be vulnerable, transparent with them, especially. So if we start there, then we can take it to another level. But let's start with the kids first, right? Let's let them know, like, hey, man, your dad struggles with that too. You know what I'm saying? And if you overcame that struggle, then you can share that with them, right? So let's start with the kids, man. Let's be open and vulnerable with them, and then we could take it to the next level with other relationships that we have, right? I know, like I said, vulnerability is a big risk, right? It's a big risk, but love is a risk too. You know what I'm saying? Love is a risk too. That's what love is. Love is a risk. Every time you open up to love someone, you are risking hurt, pain, trauma that could last a lifetime, right? But there is no reward without sacrifice. And so when it comes to being vulnerable, when you really love that person, when you want to take that to another level, then we have to be open and honest to doing it. So let's do it, man. Let's be vulnerable to the ones that matter. Let's start with our children. God bless. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something out of it. I know this is one of my longest videos, but I just really wanted to spill that out because it's a struggle of mine. It's been a struggle of mine. And I just want to help, those that are listening and those that are willing to take this thing to another level. Again, God bless. Please like, share, subscribe, do all of those things, man, so we can continue to share on this platform. And let's change the world. God bless.